do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another segment of Meet the Artist. I am Joan Turner of the Greater Haverhill Arts Association, and the Greater Haverhill Arts Association just celebrated its 50th anniversary. Arts in the Park and Arts Festival in the Park, and we had a great time and all kinds of good stuff. So, this podcast gives us the opportunity to meet some of the GHA members. Because lots of times, I see the names and stuff, but I don't actually get to meet the people. So, this is nice. But you, Michael, I know. Michael is vice president of the Greater Haverhill Art Association and really good. He helped me carry all my stuff at the Greater Haverhill Arts Festival.
Absolutely.
You were amazing, amazing. So everyone, I would like to introduce, if you don't already know, Michael Rossi. And how long have you been vice pres?
I have been vice president for 2 years,
2 years.
maybe 3. 2 years, I think.
It seems like just yesterday to me. So the time goes by really, really fast. And are you retired and doing art full time now, or?
I am retired. I am doing art as well. It's more of a hobby, I guess. I'm doing it. I'm not sure I'm doing anything full time, so it's one of the many full time projects that I'm working on.
I love it. I love it. How did you first become interested in art?
I think I've always been interested in art. Certainly.
That's a good answer. I love it.
Really, I've been trying to, because I knew you were going to ask, I've been trying to think about when I maybe first started trying to do any kind of art. And I really can't quite remember. I know I've been interested in art, looking at art, studying art for a very long time. But I don't really remember when I started. I must have been drawing pictures as a little kid.
Yeah, people ask me the same thing, and I say, I don't know. My mother said I was using crayons to draw on the wall when I was little, so I totally can relate to that. So when you became interested in art, now art wasn't your full-time job. What did you do before you retired?
I was a college professor and a college dean for many years.
Really, really? Nice, nice.
And it kept me very busy.
I bet. So now, are you formally trained with art? I know you mentioned that it's a hobby, so are you self-taught or did you?
I am largely self-taught. I can remember that I did a lot of drawing as a kid and watched a lot of what was available at the time on TV for art shows and drawing shows. I think there weren't a lot of them at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did a lot of drawing when I hit my, that's my cuckoo clock. I did a lot of drawing when I was in my early teens. Did a few paint by number things because that was the thing back then.
We all did that.
It was, but I liked the feel of working with the paint. And so I bought some oil paints and did some oil paintings. I tried to do some oil paintings in my late teens, did a few at that point. Kind of embarrassing to look back at, although a couple were actually pretty good.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. And so when the only art course that I've taken was in my senior year in college. So I was, 21, I guess, barely at the time. And I'm not sure it did a great deal for me. One of the things that I struggle with in painting, and I do primarily oil painting, one of the things I struggle with is working with colors. And one of the things that I hoped even way back then, this was decades ago, I'd hope to, get a little bit more instruction in that. But this was a period of time when realism was really frowned on. The only thing that was really legitimate to be doing was abstract. And so the course, though interesting and giving me some more practice in painting, um, really taught me absolutely nothing about using colors. It was so bad. And at the time, I'd really learned so little about using colors that when I asked the instructor how to make a bright red duller, I had to ask 3 or 4 different ways in order to find out that I should add some
Really?
green to it.
Really?
So, that was very interesting in many ways.
Yeah.
But as I said, I've always been really interested in art. My family was very much into crafts of various kinds, arts and crafts. And so, there was a lot of encouragement to do whatever the heck I liked and to try different things. And so I've always been willing to try some new things at least once. And so over the years, I think I did the art for a magazine cover when I was in college.
Really? Really? That's
I
awesome.
did.
That's
And
awesome.
it came out actually pretty good. I learned a little bit about doing several versions of the drawing afterwards so that they could do color separations to print the cover. This was obviously well before the wonders of um,
Computer.
digital art and all of this, right? I'm really from the typewriter era as far as everything is concerned.
I was going to say me too,
Although,
but then I thought the better of it.
well, I mean, we've all moved into the computer era
Computer age. Yeah,
with
totally.
great glee, but things were different then. And over the years after that, I really had very little time when I was in graduate school and in my career to do very much. I did do some linoleum block prints of Christmas cards. Tried my hand because I had ink from the linoleum blocks. I tried my hand at some silk screen printing. Have no idea at this point what I produced that way because I'm not even sure I could find a copy of it anymore. And I know that I didn't do a great deal of it because it was difficult.
Yeah.
Especially with homemade equipment, because I really didn't have much money also at the same time.
Yeah, that's always
So
a deterrent. Yeah.
yeah, so I've moved on from other things there. So I'm basically self-taught, and I'm really basically self-taught a lot from books. I've always been obviously a big book person because I was originally an English major, so that kind of sets it. And the books behind me are only part of our library. It's like a quarter of it, maybe, or eighth of it.
Yeah, let me move my head. See other books.
Yes.
A lot of my books are art books and meditation books, stuff like that. Yours are probably more English literary type thing.
The section behind me is from uh, what Beowulf through 1800, I think.
Nice, nice.
There are other periods around other places. But anyway, so I have gathered a lot of art books and art instruction books. They're helpful to a degree, interesting to look at.
Very.
Um, Found a lot of encouragement and really inspiration in the demos that the Art Association does
Yes, yes.
over the years. I've been going to those for years, and I think I picked up a lot from those just from watching. And oh, I don't know. We seem
Have
to
you
be
ever
running
gone
down a
to
little.
any of the like the Saturday workshops and stuff?
Interestingly, I went to 4 or 5 of the very earliest of the Saturday workshops when they were just starting, and Mark Hayden was basically, I think the Art Association was introducing them,
Yeah.
and they were being done in the senior center, way back when. It was that far
Yeah,
long ago.
yeah, yeah.
And they were just wonderful. And I think they really, they did a great deal for me. They made me feel really very good. And this must have been, that was probably 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I
I mean,
was
it
gonna
might have.
say I didn't realize that we had ever done them in the senior center. So yeah, you're going back a few years.
I think they probably moved out of there fairly quickly. I was unable to continue with them much beyond the first 5 or 6 that I went to,
Uh-huh.
and that's largely because things just became much too busy for me, and I even had to cut back on some of the other groups that I was part of, and I've really not had free Saturday since. I would love to go to some of the current workshops. They're
Yeah,
wonderful.
I don't get a chance to go as much as I'd like to either, but they're phenomenal. And the other resource that a lot of my students mention is YouTube's. YouTube's, believe it or not, talking about
Yes,
entering the computer age. There are YouTubes on just about anything you would like to know about. Watercolors, pastels, oils, so on and so forth. Realism, not realistic. So
yes,
that's an
wonderful.
amazing, amazing resource. I have one student who, she's self-taught and she's retired as well, and she listens and watches all these YouTubes. And I can remember her first day of class. She's doing all this beautiful stuff, and she's looking at me and she says, "What do you recommend?" I said, "I recommend you teach the class." I said, "Because I can't do that." So, so
Uh,
they really are a wonderful resource, but especially if
that
you're really
true.
busy.
That's true.
Absolutely.
They really are. And the demos that you filmed and that are online for the art association are simply wonderful to look at too.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I think the more artists share, the more well-rounded we become. I have another
yeah.
question for you, though. You said oils. Why did you go to oils right away? Okay, so you drew first. What were you drawing with? Colored pencils, graphite, charcoal?
It was just regular
Pencil.
pencils. So
Oh,
just
okay.
graph.
Colored. Okay. When did you go into colored pencil from there?
I did not. Um, I had
Oh,
colored pencils.
interesting.
I just never liked working with them. And the drawings that I was doing, the ones that I remember now, I was probably doing a lot of other drawings as well. But the ones that I remember doing is I remember doing a lot of sort of architectural interior uh, scenes.
Okay.
So lots of lines,
Yeah,
angles,
yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah, you sound like a very detailed, analytical person.
I'm certainly overly obsessed with details, and that's one of the things that I really work at trying to overcome.
Well, you
Uh,
know what? I think it's great. I tell the students, if you guys do all the background work, I'll sit there and do all the little details. It's fun. It's fun to do. So why? Okay, so how did you get to oil? Because a jump from pencil to oil is a little bit of a
mhm.
jump, because oils are relatively, I mean, they're a forgiving medium. If you don't like something, you let it dry, you paint over it. However, they take a long time to dry, and like you said, color work is a
That is true. And I'm not sure I have the best of answers, except that I think when I started in with oils, um, I don't think acrylics were around that much
oh,
at the time.
okay.
Um, and I certainly know acrylic house paint wasn't around much yet at
There
that
you go.
point.
Well, we use acrylic
So
house
I,
paint for paint pours, believe it or not.
yeah, yeah. So I assume that there was the other wasn't really widespread. So
Oh,
it was what I knew about, what I was familiar with,
all right.
and
Very cool.
yeah, that's probably about it. And I
Well,
really couldn't
that's
afford to spend much money on more than one kind of medium.
well, yeah, and typically what I advise for students is buy the best you can afford, because the quality of the supplies does make a difference. But I would rather see someone draw with Crayola pencils than not draw at all. So that's a very
Yes,
good point. The
yes.
younger artists don't typically have the financial wherewithal to kind of do that. So now the
And I know
question,
people can do wonderful things with colored pencils. It's just that
yeah.
I couldn't, and I didn't even know pastels existed at that time.
Uh-huh. I love it. I love it. So, you had said something about color work not coming easy to you, color work. I can
Yes.
remember as a teenager drawing mostly in graphite. And my mother used to say to me, "Why don't you throw some color on there?" And I'd say to her, "I don't want to ruin it." You know what I mean? So you're right. The color work can be a little bit intimidating. So, so how did you overcome that? Just through trial and error and
Through reading books about
reading.
color mixing.
Yeah. And then you
Bought a
tried it
little book,
yourself.
right? Bought a little book that shows all these little blotches of color, what you get when you mix one thing with another, um, which, yeah, is sort of almost maybe half accurate, but it's a help anyway.
It is a
Gives
help.
some ideas.
An interesting story is I had a student who would take semi-private lessons. He was actually colorblind, and
Ah,
that amazed me that he wanted to work in color when he was colorblind. So he used to use colored pencils and he would draw these things. And because he didn't finish them all in one setting, he would bring the picture he was working on the next day. And part of the picture would have green grass and part of it would have yellow grass. And I'd say to him, "Is this done purposefully or did you just not? Oh, I didn't remember what color I didn't remember what pencil I used." And I'll tell you something, he came up, he was one of the most original, and he came up with one of the most original work because he drew really well, but his color work was all over the place, and it was actually kind of exciting. So,
I would
everything.
think it would be. Yeah,
It was very exciting to have him as a student. So let me ask you, where do
yeah.
your inspirations come from? What do you like to paint? And I know that you have some to even show us, so when you're ready,
Sure.
we'll take.
Um, I really like to do landscapes, and it turns out that I become, well, I like to do landscapes. I started doing some water lilies because we have a little lily pond in the backyard, and so I'm doing some of those. And I ended up doing pots and flowers largely because I went to the Art Association's paint-ins at Noonan's
Doing it.
greenhouse
Yeah,
in
yeah.
January. And as a result of that, I kind of discovered that I seem to do pretty well with some flowers, at least to my liking anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm probably doing more flowers than I thought I was interested in doing.
They're a pretty forgiving subject matter, actually, because
Yeah.
nature is not perfect; it is perfection. So, if you don't get the shape of the plant just right, it doesn't hurt the composition. So it's actually pretty nice. So landscapes, seascapes, landscapes.
Landscapes, for the most part on land. I really haven't done many
Not too many
before.
seascapes, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, um, I would like to do a series of the back ends of barns because I'm kind of interested in those, which seems kind of strange and
Back
interesting.
ends of what? Back ends of what?
Barns, barn.
Oh, barns. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeehaw,
not the front,
barns. All right, I
but the
get it.
back of barns.
Back of
I've
barns.
got it. I've got a
It
thing for the
does
back
seem
of barns.
unusual. Say why,
It
say
it
why.
does. It does, and a lot of a fair number of the things that I do partly from photographs, and I've got some photographs that I took when I was much younger of countryside where we would spend time in the summer. So for me, there's a kind of nostalgic element in working with some of these,
Yeah,
and
it adds.
definitely making them more attractive than they are, or at least more interesting to me
We call
than they
that
are in the
taking
photo.
artistic license.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So do
So
you
that,
have some? You
yes,
have some.
and I have to say that I have only been painting again really since 2017, and before that I probably had not picked up a brush to paint anything for or at least 15 years before that. And so what I'd like to show you in part is I'd like to show you the first picture that I painted in 2017, which kind of convinced me, despite its problems that maybe it'd be worth continuing to do some of this. So it came out better than I expected. And so this is the first painting that I did in 2017. And
Wow.
it's one of the few seaside.
Nice. Beautiful,
But
beautiful.
um,
I want to look closer.
name
Your screen is
escapes me at the
freezing.
moment,
Screen
but
is freezing just a little bit here, but gives
a
me a
little
chance
bit
to check
there.
it out. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So Good Harbor Beach, I guess. Is that what
Good
it is?
Harbor
Something.
Beach.
So there is that. So let's see, what else have I got around here? This is one of my back.
Hold on. The screen is freezing just a tad. Hold that thought. I don't know if it's freezing on your side. So we get a second look here.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is one of my back ends of barns.
I love that. Back ends of bonds.
Back ends of barns.
So why back ends? Why are those more
I
captivating to you? We're
I
looking
think
for a glimpse into your personality here. Where's Freud when we need him?
I have no idea. That that was, well, in part that was a view that we very rarely see,
Yes.
and that was the one that I started with in a way, and that was from a photograph I took probably when I was 17 or 18, and had actually, traveled way to the far end of a field beyond a barn at a farm near us. And it's just always interested me. Let's see, some other kinds of things that I do. I've done some streetscapes, primarily
Nice.
in the ones that I find fun are streetscapes from photos that I took in Italy. This is someplace in, I don't know, Lombardy, I guess, or Tuscany, one or the other.
Nice. Nice. So
So
that one has a lot of perspective in it. So how do you start that picture? Do you start like at the horizon line and then you
uh,
spin and give us hints, give
uh,
us hints.
you know, I really like all of the perspective, the conflicting angles, and
Yeah.
all of that. And I'm not sure which ones I do first, but I draw them until I get everything, sort of going in odd directions at once.
All right. I have a question. Now,
Sure.
if people can actually draw exactly what they see, then they probably never need to take a perspective lesson. But that looks so good. Are you able to draw exactly what you see, or did you take perspective lessons so that you got everything the way it's supposed to look?
I keep trying to take perspective lessons. They help a great deal.
They are so boring, are they not?
They are boring, and I have great difficulty replicating
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what I've been told. Some of the lessons are wonderful, and they look so they make so much sense. They look
Right.
so easy, and then they're really hard to replicate.
They really
But
are.
I found that when I'm doing some of these things, um, sometimes the lessons are really helpful for figuring out what to do with some of the really hard parts that aren't coming out right.
How about grids? Do you actually use grids? I actually shy away from them, but a lot of students, that's the only way they can get things where they belong.
Yeah, I've only used grids once or twice, and that's when trying to make sure that the placement of things that I like in a photo will end up in relatively the same space
Yeah,
in the drawing that I'm doing.
of course.
And let's see, what else have I got here? Oh, this is one of the water lilies from my
Oh,
pond. And
beautiful.
again, on these things, what I really like is the high contrast, and I like the sort of weird shapes and angles,
Yeah.
and the fact that this little blob of blue over here, which is really, or this little glob of little spots of green down there, the blue is bits of sunlight poking through the leaves on the trees overhead. And the little blobs of green are bits of algae that are picking up a little bit of light. And I kind of like the abstract quality of some of those bits and pieces as
Abstract,
much as the,
realistic.
yeah, as much as the sort of more realistic
Yep.
aspect of the
That's
other
beautiful.
pieces.
That's beautiful.
And so let's see, I think I have one more here that I can show you. And this is one that I completed recently. This was a lot of fun. And
Ah,
um,
nice.
this one my wife really likes because it's got a frog in it. We've got frogs in our pond. And
Ah,
this is one of the things that I found is that sometimes it's great to have a couple of different pieces going at once.
yeah.
And this one really was done over the course of probably almost a year. I had it on another easel, and every time I was painting something else and had some leftover paint of relatively the right color or even the wrong color, I would slap a little more onto it, you know,
Yeah,
do
yeah,
do the
totally.
basis of another lily pad or something like that. And so
I'm
that was,
laughing because I do that all the time. I always have like 10 zillion things going, and I'll say, oh, this color would look good over there. Let me go over there for a few minutes. Totally
I
intuitive.
really, I really like painting wet into wet. And so some of that one, what was interesting of that is that a great deal of it wasn't wet into wet because it was over such a long period of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then there are a few other pieces too. Actually, over my shoulder here, there's a vase of flowers which I did recently, and that was
Can
a
we
lot of
see
fun because
close
the
up?
flowers were. I'm
Can
sorry.
we see close up? Can we
Sure, I can
grab it?
grab it.
That's very pretty, pretty, pretty.
This was fun because the bulk of the flowers was done wet on wet. So you can't really see it in here, but there's a kind of a mix of yellow in with the white.
Believe it or
And
not,
then,
you can, I can see the
yeah.
yellow in there.
And one of the things, I mean, normally I wouldn't be painting something with so much white in it. And it's got, one of the things I'm trying to work on more is trying to do more with brush strokes rather than having things be flat. And so this has actually a little bit of buildup of white
Texture.
paint on the flowers. And one of the things that I was kind of surprised and pleased with when it was finished is that when it's in a relatively dark corner, it's sort of, it's like vibrant.
Pop.
It sort
Yeah.
of just pops out at you.
Yes. Yeah,
So
that's why I said to you, bring it over, because as I was looking at it, I could see it, and it's like, oh, I want to see, the interest, the people want to see it. It's like, where is it?
and then one of the and then one
I,
of the things I have to show you, I think this is fun. Uh, this little guy,
I
and
love that.
you know, it's funny. I don't know what I think of these. I started doing several of these. These are based on statuary at Noonan's, and I've done a couple of others. And this one has the advantage of being mostly one thing. Some of the other pieces that I have with little bits of statues from Noonan's have too much in them, so they're a little busy. Uh, but I look at them, it's really cute and kind of whimsical, and
Yeah.
I kind of don't know what I think about them. I kind of look at them and say, oh, that's so
What is that? You
cute.
know what? It's like realistic fantasy. That's what I call it.
It is.
Makes
It's
them,
kind of strange. So
that's awesome.
I have mixed feelings about that kind of thing. And over my shoulder on the wall is a cyclamen that I did.
A what? A what?
A cyclamen.
Oh, it's
It's
a
another
flower.
flower.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
another
I
flower.
was thinking of someone who was cycling, a man who was cycling.
Oh
I don't,
no,
I take
no,
things every very literally. Yeah. It
no.
looks nice from here. Hint, hint.
Yes. Um, I'm not sure that I could pull it off the wall to
Oh,
bring it up.
okay. Yeah. We don't want to do any structural damage there.
Well, it's just awkward to get
Okay.
at. Yeah.
No problemo. No problemo. Okay. So,
So,
question, what do you like what's the most fun about painting for you?
um, well, I think what is the most fun?
What's the
Uh,
best part?
well, I really enjoy it while I'm doing it. Seeing, you know, what I'm getting when the colors come together, get onto the canvas. I think I really enjoy. I think I really enjoy having a piece be pretty much finished too.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Do you ever, are you like me? You look at it, you go, oh, that looks pretty good. I can't believe I did that. Do you ever have that sensation?
all the time. And one of the things that I've really been trying to learn is when to stop. Um,
Oh, when you find out, let me know.
yeah, no, the tendency to keep going and overwork something and take something that was really looking pretty good and bring it to a point where it's really not quite so good
Not
anymore.
looking quite as good as it
Yeah,
was. And then, of course, you try to fix it, and then it becomes worse. And you're like,
yeah,
all right, maybe I should just shelve this whole thing.
yeah,
I
always
totally,
a problem.
totally get it. So, okay, so the funnest thing is working on it, having that feeling of accomplishment. It's all finished. What's the very worst part of it? Is there a worst part?
uh, I would say that the worst part is finally deciding that something you're working on is a disaster that will never be right. And the only thing to do with it is to throw it away.
That is, I have asked that question many times. That is totally the best answer I have ever heard.
And I have to say that, since as I said, I've only been painting again since 2017. I've only completed about 25 pieces. And there are, I think, 4 other pieces that I've had to discard. So my
Okay,
batting average isn't too bad,
not at
but
all.
they were so bad that I just couldn't do anything with them. And actually, I have another one now that I
May
was
end up.
trying. Yeah, I have to throw it away. It's a little 8x10 thing. I was trying to work with learning about glazes to get lots of depth. The glazes are coming out wonderfully, but somewhere, because oil paint takes so long to dry, somewhere between one of the early glazes and one of the second or third one that I was working on, I must have made a rare event of vacuuming in the area trying to clean up, and I completely covered it with some kind of dust,
Oh,
which because it was wet was unremovable. And I thought, well, maybe more paint will fix it.
well,
It's gotten
you
worse.
should be more like me and forget about doing housework. What is that all about? You know?
Well, I don't do it very often, but this
But
one, it
say,
just got,
ruins your
the spots
pictures.
got blacker as I went on. So it is being replaced with a new fresh start.
Fresh start. So speaking of fresh start, do
Yes.
you use canvases or do you use canvas boards? What's your favorite?
I've used both, but I've really decided that I like canvas boards a lot more. Um,
Because
uh,
they're easier to frame?
well, in part, I like to put the pieces down on a table in front of me and work, sitting down at a table
Gotcha.
as much as more even than I like putting them on an easel and working on the easel.
Okay.
And when I do that, I like the stiffness of it rather than the give of the canvas.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
ask you. There's a little bit more give to a stretched canvas, certainly.
there is,
Yeah,
there is. Now I'll work on both of them, and I have both to work on, and but I do have a slight preference for the canvas
yeah.
board.
Interesting. I actually like both. I sort of go towards the stretched canvases, but partially part of that might be because that's the way I learned and what I've been
Hmm,
using all these years. But I find that the boards are actually, like you said, there's not as much give. They're certainly easier to frame. So
they
yeah,
are.
definitely easier to frame. So do you have a favorite of your own artwork? Do you have a favorite piece of your own art?
It keeps changing.
That's a good answer too, because someone asked me that, and I said, "Well, this week it's this one. Next week it might be
Yes,
something else." Yeah, yeah. So,
yes.
what kind of paints do you use? Do you have a brand that you like, or do you kind of mix and match?
I'm using primarily Winsor & Newton.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people use Winsor Newton. Nice. Okay,
Yeah,
so
there are
nice.
some other wonderful brands around, but
There are.
that's
There's a lot. What kind of medium do you use? Do you use an oil? Are you using liquid? What do you put in?
I'm using Gamblin and I various kinds of stand oil, no
Okay.
particular brand that I can recall.
All right. Yeah, I know. I haven't done oils for a while. I've mostly been doing acrylics because it's easier for students. certainly. And sometimes we mix them because, the oils are easy to mix, the acrylics dry faster. So
Yeah.
sometimes we'll do an acrylic background and then use oils for the foreground, which
Hmm.
always amazes people. And they're like, "Can you mix them?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I do. I guess we can." Yeah. So have you ever had an artist block? Like you don't know, you're going to say no,
Sure.
aren't you? You're
No, I'm going to say sure all the time.
I,
And I sometimes I don't know whether it's because I don't know what to do next, or sometimes it's just I don't know whether I'm into a period of ultimate procrastination.
well, yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it, isn't it? And there's
Uh,
sometimes when, I want to just paint and draw and be doing stuff all the time. And then there's other times when I don't. So, so I totally
I
understand.
mean, I know that I can't really sit down and start doing something without spending 2 hours on it. That seems to be almost the minimum. And sometimes I feel like I just don't really have 2 hours that I want to spend that way, even though I probably do. So that's a burden to overcome.
Yeah,
And other times I can set aside a whole afternoon or something like that. That's wonderful.
yeah,
And I suspect that's probably the major difference between essentially an amateur and a professional. Professionals spend all day working at
I
things
think part of
and
it, believe it
effective.
or not, is probably habit. If it's what you do for your business, it's like going to work.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so you sit there and do it. But as a semi-retired person myself, I find that my state of mind has a lot to do with it. If I feel like sitting down and doing it, everything comes out awesome, and I, amaze myself. And if it's a piece that I feel like I have to get done with it, it's different. It's a different mindset, and it actually translates right into the artwork, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I find that I'm sort of getting to my paint more often now, partly because it's really become clear to me that the more often you work on things, the better it's likely to be. So it's really a case of repeated effort. If you don't do it very often, it's going
Yeah,
to be difficult. You
yeah.
do it frequently, things usually come a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. Practice definitely has utility. You practice enough and you say, "Oh yeah, that works. That doesn't work," and it becomes part of
Yeah,
what's in your bag of tools. So if you look at a picture and as a
yeah.
self-proclaimed amateur, what to you makes a piece of artwork successful?
Uh,
Give a hard question, so you're
yeah. What makes it successful? I don't know. How do I know? I mean, if I like it, I like it. There are
that's
things that
a good answer.
there there are things that make me more likely to like something. I like things with probably a lot of dark light contrast. I like things that have exciting color in them, interesting shapes. Um, I like things that draw you into the picture. I don't know.
And so the opposite of that would make it an unsuccessful picture. And the only reason I ask is because, I ask that question a lot and I get pretty much the same answers: composition, color work, you know, um, whether something looks 3D or not, so on and so forth. But in the end, it really does come down to I like it. I just like the way it looks. It works for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that is a very awesome, awesome answer. Okay, so I asked you earlier,
Yeah.
you had a website and you said no.
Not
Any
yet.
plans for a website?
Maybe someday, but not in the immediate future.
Not in the immediate future. So do you sell any of your work? Are you wanting to sell any of your work?
Um, sure, be happy to sell some of my work. It's in the various shows that the GHAA does,
Mhm.
and available some of it there. So yes.
So how do people get in touch with you if they would like to do that or just to know more about you?
The probably the way to get in touch with me is by email, and My current email address is my old academic one, Rossi M, ROSSIM, at merrimack.edu.
Nice, nice. Okay. So, anything else we should know about you? You're a man of many talents.
Uh,
He's like, okay, is this a G rate? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm involved in a lot of different kinds of projects. I'm a gardener, do a lot of work around a yard. We've been sort of rebuilding, fixing the old house that we live in for the last 30 years. It's a never-ending job.
Yeah, homes
Do
are a
some
never.
furniture refinishing. It just,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
got, I have so many different kinds of projects going at once. That's another reason why sometimes I don't have a lot of time.
Well,
Ready one.
we're certainly glad you crossed our path, you and me, because you are more than essential to the GHAA. Your work is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And I want to thank you for talking with me today and taking time out of that busy, busy schedule.
It's been fun, Joan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. And we'll see you at the next meeting.
Yes, we will.
All right. Bye bye for now.
Bye.